Welcome to the presentation on resolutions for adoption at the 2021 National PTA Convention held in my office and your living room. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you gain some insight into the process and feel much more informed to make the best decision when voting on these items. Let me start by introducing the committee members for the Resolutions Committee. Barb Bungard, Jeffrey Corbett, Susan Lipman, Corey Sanfilippo, Kathy Thrumston. Not present on the call, but also valuable members of our committee, Parmi Dean, Allison Kinney, and Geronimo Rodriguez. On here tonight, but you won't be able to see their faces, but we wouldn't be able to do this without them, as our staff superstars, Heidi Mae Wilson and Beth Rorick. There you go, thumbs up to them. And in case you didn't know, I'm Cindy Gerhardt, the extremely lucky chair of this amazingly hardworking committee. Before we get started, let's talk about what steps got us to this point. It starts with an issue, a concern, a hot topic. A local unit, county council, district, or state can bring a resolution forward for consideration. It can rise out of an incident or a personal story, such as the furniture tip-over resolution, or be a national topic like the culturally insensitive team names and mascots. It can be addressing safety issues, such as the sale of tobacco products, or educational programs, such as world language instruction. Regardless of the subject matter, the most important consideration is its national footprint and scope. If it is a state or region concern only, then it most likely will not be moved forward to our body of delegates for adoption, unless we see that taking a proactive stance would benefit the greater good. Once the committee has reviewed the submission, if we feel the topic has met the criteria, we'll work to refine and prepare it for the approval of the National PTA Board of Directors. Once they approve either as is or with the addition of amendments, it moves to the convention body for adoption. During the face-to-face convention, delegates would have an opportunity to debate and make motions from the floor. This year, due to our virtual platform, all comments and suggestions were submitted via an online link. The resolutions you hear about tonight and view on the website have been through the entire approval process twice. We feel confident that we have listened and put forth language which meets all the criteria to support the missions of PTA. So now we'll move along through each resolution, discussing the how and the why, so you can better understand our desire for those attending the National PTA Convention to support the adoption of these important resolutions. We will not be reading each resolution in its entirety. Collective sigh, I'm sorry, but you can find those posted on the National PTA website. Susan, I believe you are first to discuss the rationale on social and emotional learning and awareness. Susan, you're still on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. And yes, this is such an important and timely resolution. There's always been much discussion about social and emotional learning, but the conversation has been heightened since the pandemic, and these conversations are just so much more important to our mission in advocating for children. So we really appreciate that Massachusetts PTA sent this forward to us for our consideration. The rationale for this resolution is that social emotional learning is an integral part of education and human development. Research demonstrates that social and emotional learning and mental health support can improve health, academic achievement, career readiness, and make a lifelong impact on students and adults. The increasing digital nature of our global society confirms that future leaders will need SEL skills, specifically relationship building, self and social awareness, self-management, and thoughtful decision-making. Additionally, a health pandemic or natural disaster can amplify the existing problems of basic food, housing, and employment, mental health, and physical health, thus causing increased and unprecedented trauma and disruption for all. How to teach SEL, support students, engage families, and create community partnerships has emerged as an integral part of ensuring the successful development of these skills. This resolution will intensify advocacy efforts, proliferate educational awareness programs, support collaboration on research and resources, and urge stigma-free, accessible SEL programs. Adopting this resolution will ensure that national PTA and its constituent associations can advocate for programs and support and the resources necessary to prepare healthier students and adults to positively contribute to society.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was so well put. So Kathy, thanks for taking this next rationale on culturally insensitive team names and mascots. Kathy?
Thank you, Cindy. This came from Florida PTA, and they took the lead on this very important topic and brought it to national PTA because an often overlooked component of the use of culturally insensitive names, mascots, and symbols is that they have on the school culture, which shapes the identity of students, teachers, and their communities. Culturally insensitive memorization normalizes stereotypes and reinforces systemic racism, thereby producing toxic learning environments for students and educators, which can lead to inequitable outcomes. There's currently 110 public educational facilities and buildings that are named after Confederate soldiers, leaders, and politicians, even though more than half of the 125,000 students who attend these educational facilities are non-white. Also in this country, there are 2,000 college, high school, and school teams that have Native American names and mascots. And what's also really important to note is that using derogatory or culturally insensitive names, mascots, or symbols in public educational facilities that violates the Department of Education's obligation to provide all students with an equitable education. And also the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights by resolution states that schools should not use their influence to perpetuate the misrepresentation of any cultural people. Two of PTA's core values are diversity and respect. To accomplish our mission of enabling every child to reach their full potential, we must focus on respecting all children, their culture, and their experiences. The harm from colonization and enslavement on our country, states, and local communities is profound. Commemorizations and symbols are woven into the background tapestry of our institutions. School names, symbols, and mascots continue to ingrain racism and negative stereotypes, thus disenfranchising, disempowering, and harming our communities. This must change. In order for our communities to operate in full engagement and empowerment, we need to reconsider the names and symbols of educational institutions within our neighborhoods. We must collaborate and engage with all stakeholders in the renaming process as a respectful way to ensure that those who have been disenfranchised are respected and honored. We must be open to examine our commemorations and symbols so that we can fully advocate for all children and change the narrative as we move forward with hopes for equality for all.
That's awesome, Kathy. Thank you so much. It's so powerful. Hey, Barb, I'll have you go ahead to go next and share the rationale on world language instruction. Barb? Barb, are you off mute?
I am not. Sorry about that.
That's
We'll
fine.
just give it another try.
Good to hear you.
This important resolution was brought forward by Virginia PTA. And one of the reasons that they used to support why they brought it forward to National PTA for consideration was that 1 out of 5 residents in the United States speak a language other than English in the home. And unfortunately, there is a significant shortage of qualified K-12 world language and or bilingual teachers in every state of the country. So this is the reason behind that supported that this is such a crucial issue for us to consider today. Language enables us to present ideas and discoveries, to express needs, and as to convey how we comprehend the communities and cultures around us. Numerous studies show that learning a second language increases students' cognitive benefits in their achievement. Additionally, being exposed to world languages at a young age increases the likelihood of acquiring a high level fluency, not only at home, but also in their communities. American businesses, as well as the federal government, report that in today's world, there is a greater demand for multilingual speakers to support our economic, diplomatic, scientific, and cultural needs. While the United States prides itself on being a multicultural nation, and our citizens speak more than 350 languages, the majority of Americans remain monolingual. When they can converse in a language of others and understand the world around them, students will increase opportunities to collaborate, communicate, and demonstrate creativity, critical thinking, and good citizenship. We must advocate for all schools to have adequate instructional leaders, both in person and virtually, to be able to offer world language as part of the well-defined K-12 instructional sequence. By doing so, they can provide students with exposure to one or more languages and cultures and allow students to not only learn a language, but also progress toward fluency. Thank you, Cindy, for this opportunity to share this important information.
That was wonderful, Barb. Thank you so much. So next we'll hear from Jeffrey with the rationale for career and technical education. Take it away, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Cindy. Career and technical education programs provide an educational option for students at all levels of academic achievement who wish to gain hands-on experience in an ever-widening array of career paths, many in emerging industries that will dominate the job market in years to come. Erroneous perceptions of CTE programs persist, namely that such educational options are limited to the traditional building trades or suitable only for those who are not qualified for admission to post-secondary instructions. Clearly, there is a need to further educate parents, students, guidance counselors, and community members about career and technical education, as well as to advocate for enhanced funding for expanding the enrollment and scope of such programs at the state and federal levels. Adoption of this resolution will provide PTA with additional support in our efforts to do this very thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. So Corey, are you ready to share the rationale for the resolution on the harmful sexual orientation and gender identity change efforts?
Yes, Cindy, I am.
Awesome.
I would like to thank Florida PTA for bringing this resolution forward. It is extremely important. The intent of this resolution is to save the lives of LGBTQ youth who are at greater risk of suicide. Startling statistics from the Center of Disease Control show that the suicide as of 2017 is now the second leading cause of death among youth ages 15 to 19. An LGBTQ youth that is highly rejected by their family is 8 times more likely to take their own lives than those from more accepting families. Change efforts, sometimes known as conversion or reparative therapy, is a range of dangerous and discredited practices that falsely claim to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. Such practices have been discredited by mainstream medical and mental health organizations for decades. Despite this, and due to continuing discrimination and societal basis against LGBTQ people, some practitioners continue to conduct these programs. Studies have shown that these efforts can lead vulnerable LGBTQ youth into depression, anxiety, drug use, homelessness, and suicide. To protect our LGBTQ youth and their families, PTA must empower to advocate for and support legislation and policies that would protect our youth and families from this unproven practice. Furthermore, PTA must educate our communities about research-based findings of the harm caused by trying to use these efforts to change a child's sexual orientation. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Corey. I know that this one was so close to most of our hearts, and so I appreciate you sharing that. Right, so now I'd like to talk to you guys about the rationale for the resolution on improving school meal programs. This one came from Bellevue PTSA Council in Washington State. It was born out of a work group of both Washington and California. Proper nutrition is the cornerstone of a child's health, well-being, and balance. Students receive a significant portion of their daily nutritional needs from school, which for majority includes breakfast and lunch. In 2018, roughly 4.9 billion lunches were served annually to 30.4 million children that participate in the National School Lunch Program, with approximately 74% of those participants receiving free or reduced priced lunch. Unfortunately, in many cases, if a student arrives late for school, they don't have the opportunity to participate in the breakfast after the bell, which can lead to a lack of focus and attention. 14 million children, I'm going to say that again, 14 million children face food insecurities, which also has an impact on behavior and attendance. Often, students who accrue meal debt have been humiliated or stigmatized by certain actions referred to as meal shaming. These tactics can include taking a meal away from a student after they've been served, replacing the hot meal with a cold meal alternative, or putting a sticker on the student's shirt that says, "I need lunch money." A handful of states have already taken action to prohibit such meal shaming practices, but many more states need to follow suit. Due to competing demands for time during the school day, lunch periods have been shortened and students are rushed through their lunch period, oftentimes throwing food away or bringing it home in their lunchbox uneaten at the end of the day. Adoption of this resolution will allow our voice to be raised to speak on behalf of meal availability for all students. Okay, Barb, I'm going to pass it to you to cover the rationale for furniture tip over.
Thank you, Cindy. This resolution was brought forward to us by North Shore Council in Washington. And this is something that was one of those that, as Cindy mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, was brought by a self-story. We heard on Good Morning America this situation that had occurred and the need to have legislation to support it at the same time that it was brought to our committee. So this is a resolution that not only is relevant by a state, but is national in scope and does have a personal reference to many of us who may have had this happen to one of our children. In the United States, furniture tip-overs kill one child every 11 days. And one child will visit the emergency room every 37 minutes for a tip-over related injury. With the adoption of this resolution, it will allow PTA parents to be advocates for changing these furniture safety standards. In today's world, there are standards, but they're voluntary. There are some states that have taken this on and are in the process or have adopted resolutions that and laws that do require the public facilities to have this type of tip over. But unfortunately, there's only 27% of Americans anchor their furniture in today's society. The Sturdy Act is federal legislation that has been introduced in the House and the Senate to address the safety standards for newly manufactured clothing storage units, and would make it not a voluntary, but a mandatory requirement when building such furniture for sale to our parents. This large resolution will allow you as an advocate for PTA, as well as our staff in Washington, to speak on behalf of the importance of having something as simple as an anchor to secure this furniture so that a child is not injured. PTA can help by speaking out, supporting the Sturdy Act, creation of your state legislation to require such anchoring of the furniture in not only the homes, but especially in public facilities to protect our children in the care, and also taking the time to educate our local leaders regarding the dangers that this type of furniture tip over could create for children. And it will allow our schools and communities to continue to be advocates on the health and safety of the children across our country. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Barb. I know personally this one was very eye-opening for me. I did not even realize the scope of this issue, and I'm so glad that they brought it forward. Susan, why don't you take the rationale for the amendments to the electronic cigarettes and the sale of tobacco products?
Thank you, Cindy. So these two resolutions have been revised as a joint project between the Legislation Committee and the Resolutions Committee. The revisions to these two resolutions are proposed in order to enable National PTA and its constituent associations to address the growing concerns over vaping and other forms of tobacco products that are targeted to individuals under the age of 21. By removing the terms minors and youth from the previously adopted resolutions, we will be able to advocate for the prohibition of such harmful products for all individuals not yet legally considered adults. And just as an added point, commercial tobacco products are responsible for 1 of every 5 deaths, and it's the foremost preventable cancer for premature death in America.
Wow.
So there you have it.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much, Susan. Those are startling statistics. And I tell you, this was a great combined effort and with us working with the legislative committee to make sure that our language matched their language for the position statement. So it was a great project to work on, and I'm so glad that we're moving it forward. All right, Jeffrey, this next one's all yours. This was your baby since you were the chair of the task force who tackled this whale of an endeavor. All right, so it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Cindy, and that's very kind. But truthfully, everybody should be on the screen with me because it took a village. So the first thing to talk about is the proposal to rescind 143 resolutions. I know right now there are 315 resolutions on the books at the national level for PTA. So we split them up across the committee and looked at them. We had a whole list of metrics that we used. Does the resolution address something that is currently in focus for national? Has the issue or concern been resolved? Is the topic culturally relevant and appropriate? We also took into consideration the age of the resolution and the data that it may or may not contain. Some of these are so well-aged that some of the statistics that they may have there's no way that they're still in date. It is overly burdensome on staff and volunteers alike to keep these unused and out-of-date resolutions on our books. Rescission will allow current and future leaders at all levels to understand and promote the voice of the association. But Cindy, I have a way that may really help everybody think about rescinding these 143 resolutions.
Bring it on.
All right, so how many of us have been at grandma's house and you go to get something out of the cabinet or maybe the fridge, and you realize that you haven't seen that label in quite a long time. And so you look and, it may have a date on it from the 80s or even the 70s, or, you may find something, didn't they quit making this when I was in 3rd grade? That's the work of this resolution this motion that we're bringing forward. it's time to go through and check the labels on these things and get rid of what is no longer of value or should be within the scope of our work. Now, this motion leads right into the next one that we need to talk about, which is adding the date to all new resolutions and the existing ones. It is vital to ensure that the public positions of National PTA are timely and reflect on current needs of the association to support its brand, mission, objects, and vision. And while there is now a deadline for review of resolutions written into policy, there are still active resolutions. Remember those 315? Some of them are 63 years old. It's older than me, Cindy. Adoption of this action will provide for an automatic rescission of resolutions that have not been readopted or amended by the association as a timely and relevant issue, and thereby negates the need for mass rescission during the annual meeting. Remember that last motion that we just talked about? This action will also ensure that all future resolutions are required to have a rescission date, and also makes it clear that resolutions can be represented after 7 years. So remember, I talked about just a minute ago about looking for those dates. This motion is going to put the dates on everything so that we don't have to go through this action again in the future. It'll keep us timely and keep our voice very succinct and on point, because as we're advocating for every child's full potential, we need to be current and culturally relevant. Thank you, Cindy.
I love it, Jeffrey. Thank you. It's like hiring someone to go clean out your parents' refrigerator as soon as everything expires. That's perfect.
Exactly.
I also would like to thank Don Romoser, because he also participated. He came back. He served on the resolutions committee previously in the term before, and he volunteered to come back and serve just on this task force and take a good chunk of that on himself. So thank you, Don, for helping us out and get this accomplished. Okay, so before we close, I just want to thank my incredible committee members that are present: Susan, Barb, Corey, Kathy, Jeffrey, and those who were unable to come on tonight, Geronimo, Pommy, and Allison. To our super fantabulous staff members, Heidi Mae Wilson and Beth Rorick, you are rock stars and you know it. And to you, the members, I just want to remind you that your voice is vital. Your input is valuable, and these resolutions were born out of your desire to continue the legacy of advocating for our children and families. Those resolutions that have been adopted over the years are yours. You have the full authority of National PTA to speak on every topic covered in an active resolution. You have the full voice of all of us behind you when you speak. We look forward to seeing you at convention. We ask for your support on these resolutions, and we can't wait to see what topics you submit this next term. The process for submitting resolutions is in a step-by-step guide, our toolbox, our toolkit on the nationalpta.org website. Stay tuned for those dates when it's time to send them forward. Thank you again for your time, your attention, and your passion for advocacy. Good night.